I raised this issue before the break about Mr. Oben Shane, who is running for Attorney General of Virginia, the Republican senator from Virginia, state senator who's running to become the Attorney General to replace Ken Cuccinelli. Ken Cuccinelli, of course, running for the governorship against Terry McAuliffe, who seems to be beating him, but Mr. Cuccinelli has succeeded in knocking some 50,000 people off the voting rolls just in the last week or so. And we know how that, we saw that movie played out in 2000 in Florida. So who knows? But I asked the question semi-rhetorically, but I think it's actually a legitimate, serious question. And that is, operating on the premise that the Republican Party does not want the government to be so large that it can fit into the smokestacks of the Koch brothers refineries. It does not want the government to be large enough to fit into the offices of Goldman Sachs and regulate their banking activities. But so they want to shrink it down to the size where, Grover Norquist famously said, I don't want to destroy government. In fact, we used to have the clip of it. I don't know if you've got that. He said it on NPR to Mara Eliason. He said, I don't want to destroy government. I just want to shrink it down to the size of where I can drown it in the bathtub. Make it small enough that I can drown it in the bathtub. Or out of the drain of the bathtub or something like that. But it appears that what these guys seriously want, whether it's Governor Ultrasound, who wanted to force an ultrasound wand up into the vagina and against the uterus of every woman in the state of Virginia who wants to have an abortion, or whether, and make no mistake about it, that's forced. That's literally at the point of a gun if you object. And I think in most places they call that rape. Or whether it's Senator Obeshane, who wants to have Ken Cuccinelli's job, who suggested that any woman who has had a miscarriage should immediately, must, under penalty of going to prison for a year, must report herself to the local police department, not a hospital, a police department if she has a miscarriage. What causes these typically older white men to want to have such control over the reproductive functions of women? Is it some kind of just fundamental sexual insecurity? Oh, it's too small. Well, maybe I can pretend it's bigger by controlling these women. Is it that? Or is it misogyny? Is it just a fundamental hatred of women? The first girlfriend they had broke their heart, or they didn't like their older sister, or their mom used to beat them. Who knows? Or just, or is it even deeper than that? And I suspect it is, frankly. My personal opinion on this is that women are the ones who have the genuinely sacred power. They bring life into the world. And when you look around you at the natural world, what you see is the celebration in nature, essentially of the feminine. Pretty much everything we eat, corn, wheat, these are seeds. These are the eggs. These are the ova of plants. These are from the female parts of the plants. Flowers are the female parts of the plant, while the male part is the pistils and the stamen is the female. It's the pistil is the, in any case, whatever it is. I can't remember pistils and stamens, but the flowers are there to facilitate reproduction. The fruits and vegetables that we eat, arguably root vegetables aren't so involved in reproductive function, although what they do is they store enough energy that in the second year, a biennial plant with carrots and potatoes and things like that, a biennial plant in the second year has enough energy stored in the ground that it can throw out flowers so it can reproduce. So basically, the world is alive. The world, the natural world is like a giant mother. It's this feminine power and principle that just drives everything. And men just, what pollen does, what sperm does, what the male function does is it basically just flips that on. in a way that, moves DNA around and in ways that further the survival of a species. But, arguably, men are not all that necessary. In fact, the more advanced science becomes, the less necessary men become. And I think that that's the reason why you've seen these eruptions, and we're in the tail end of what I believe is a 7,000-year-long eruption of male insanity, of men dominating women, men dominating other men in order to dominate their women, war. I see all this stuff I see as insanity. And you look at the Iroquois Confederacy here in North America. Ben Franklin introduced 34 Iroquois elders to the Constitutional Convention in the summer of 1787 in Philadelphia. And they spent a couple nights up on the second floor sleeping there. And they blessed our, the people, the men who had gathered to write our Constitution. And he said, and I'm doing this from memory, so it's imperfect, but it's close to what he said. He said, and back then, ignorant savages was not considered a slur, so he was speaking highly of these folks. He said, if 5 nations of ignorant savages have been able to forge a bond that has lasted in peace for 1,000 years, then certainly 13 colonies of educated Englishmen can do the same. This is Ben Franklin. Now, what Ben Franklin knew, but he didn't talk about, and Jefferson knew, and he actually writes about in his diaries, is that 4 out of the 5 nations of the Iroquois Confederacy did not allow men to vote. And they lived in peace for a long, long time. They had figured it out. They resolved their conflicts by playing lacrosse. Literally. I mean, there's a painting just in the National Gallery, just a few blocks from here. Huge painting. I forget the artist's name. He's a kind of semi-famous 18th century painter, or maybe early 19th century painter, of an Iroquois, quote, battle. 10,000 Iroquois, the men, out there, and it looks like a war, except there's no blood because they're playing. It was a 4-day lacrosse game to resolve a dispute between 2 tribes. It's really pretty amazing. So I ask you, what do you think? Why are these guys so? Why would Senator Obenshain, who wants to be the Attorney General of Virginia, this Republican, why would he sponsor a law saying that if a woman has a miscarriage, she must report herself to the local police department within 24 hours, and if she fails to, she faces a year in prison? Why would he do that? I think there's something very deep in our culture that drives this kind of bizarre behavior, and it's something that we need to heal.